Peter Russell.
Oh, this is very cool. It's so cool to see you again.
It is amazing to see you. I have the pleasure of seeing you and chatting with you pretty regularly, but the first time in this format, and I am super excited.
Oh my.
Fantastic. Well, Peter, you have a very, very interesting story, a very impressive history, and I am really thrilled to share this story with our audience and share what you've been working on for the past few years now. And your program, your project, and what you've been building is truly something near and dear to my heart because I think it's something the world needs so, so badly. So I will stop talking. I'd love for you to just introduce yourself. Who are you? What's your background? How did you get to where you are today?
Sure. First of all, thank you. I have to pause and say thank you on that. That means a lot to me. And if you remember when we first kind of found each other, I think it was set up for like a year or two, but I have enjoyed, I think it's been, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 4 or 5 years at least. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason because I want to maintain the relationship. First of all, you and your team do amazing work, honestly. But as you know, sometimes we'll skip a meeting or whatever. I just love that you and your team love this mission and that work that we're doing. And I just want to surround myself with people who really care about this initiative. So I am Peter Russell. I am founder and CEO of Kindling. And Kindling is a video-based online mentorship platform that cultivates personal agency by empowering young adults to thrive personally and professionally. So that's kind of the long mission statement, but it's really about instilling the confidence and belief in young adults that they can take charge of their lives, they can make things happen, and they have what it takes, provided they have the skills, tools, and resources to do that, the insight and the wisdom. And I think we should not take for granted that young adults have developed that, whether that's, I'd like to describe Kenley kind of as the fourth space because we have home, we have school, and we have work. And just the research has shown that in many, many of those cases, young adults are not getting that wisdom and insight. So this is something personal that young adults can have, that they can keep. It's timeless, which we will get into the type of maybe the approach, but it's wisdom and insight that they can keep the rest of their lives. So that's kind of the overall mission.
Beautiful. I I have a lot of conversations throughout my life and they've centered around, "Oh my gosh, I wish they taught us this in school." Yes, there's so many instances like that. And the follow-up to that we usually don't get to is, okay, well, they didn't. So where do we find that information? Yes, we could Google. Yes, we can YouTube or now ask ChatGPT. But I think it's so beautiful that you've created and curated this space with real young adults as part of a real experience, and I'd love
Oh,
to talk
thank
through
you.
that. It's very different than just, a talking head style course where you're getting that like real-time feedback and experience. And what I love is it's such a diverse group where it allows the young adults who are taking the course to find that person that they resonate with or find that story that they find similar to theirs, and they're like following these. It's like a educational reality TV that makes you smarter, not dumber.
Well, you make a very good point because when we hear of reality TV, some people respond to that and like, oh my God, it's like super low quality type of content. But in this case, it is unscripted. And I think that's really important. So I mean, obviously you know this very well. So thank you for that question. I think not only is the need there, but I think the approach is so important, right? Because we have to meet young adults. And by the way, let's just define the loose target. The loose target is 18 to 29. And the reason why we picked this group is I believe it's a very vulnerable age in young adults' lives. And I think for many, many young adults, for the first time, they're leaving the kind of this structured compliant world and they're hitting the choppy waters, right? And for a lot of young adults, that's the end of their formal education. And some people may be saying, like, what are you talking about at 18? But the majority of young adults will not end up with a 2-year, 4-year graduate degree. In fact, only about a third do. So this is for those that go to college. This is for those that do not go to college. So that's number one. The thing that you mentioned in terms of the approach, I think is so important. So instead of there's some great online learning out there, but I wanted to create something that was different. And I wanted to create something from the perspective of young adults. I wanted to amplify their voice and shine a light on them. So as you well know, we filmed with 12 real young adults between 18 and 29 from Philadelphia, and they are incredible, and we're still in touch with them to this day. So we filmed for 6 days, 10 hours a day with these amazing 12 young adults. So instead of showing what we see now as a talking head for 20 hours, which would be pretty exhaustive, no matter what kind of charismatic speaker I could be, that's traditionally more of a lecture, right? And people would max out with that. Instead, the content is spread over 13 people's lives, the 12 of them and myself. And I think what's really cool, which you know well, is the story arc and the evolution of these 13 people coming together and me introducing myself to them and them and the 12 of them introducing themselves to me. And some are quiet and some are more out there, alpha dogs, and some are into entrepreneurship and some are into creativity, and all different backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses, age, interest, cultures, lifestyle, all of that. And what's really cool is in this very unscripted way, because he had no idea what was coming, they just knew that they were joining they were going to get kind of life skills training for free, and we would feed them and we would film them. And that was kind of the trade-off. So what was really cool was the element of surprise as we started to talk about subject matters. And what was really cool too, Pua, was how you saw people kind of open up and evolve over time. You saw somebody like Asma, who is this wonderful young Indian woman who was kind of on the quiet side. And then all of a sudden, you see her become a little bit more open and then really open at the end. So you see kind of like this real transformation over time. And I think that's what's different. There's a story arc to this. There are real lives in a very unscripted way.
Love that because it validates the actual course experience in real time.
Yeah.
You see people going through the same transformation that you're promising those who purchase the course. It's really genius.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool. And I think what's just to be clear about what we talk about, because I said it's both personal and professional, I think I always describe it. I think the best way to describe it is what we're not. And what we're not is teaching someone specifically on coding, as amazing as that is, or engineering, or anything very job specific, because I feel like, who am I to say what's in your heart and soul? And some of those things could be obsolete in 2, 3 years anyway. But most importantly, who am I to say what's in your heart and soul? So what we're trying to cover are things that are going to be important to them throughout their entire lives, regardless of what field that they get into. So it's all about, as this wild and crazy world of ours is changing constantly, we really want to help young adults create like agility and adaptability. We want them to better understand themselves so they can more intentionally pick a direction. Super important. When do you ever get the opportunity, with the speed of pace that we all deal with, especially as a 20-year-old, to pause and say, hey, let me write down what's really important to me. What do I want? What kind of person do I think I am right now? And maybe who do I want to evolve into later on? And then once you do that, we want to help them really understand how they create the conditions to succeed. So whether that's character development, skill development, really pay attention to their well-being. So a lot of this introspection and a lot of self-actualization. And then that's really on the front end, is this really great holistic kind of exploration of themselves and how they can kind of perform at their best. And then, as you know, on the back end, what we try and do is, let's take everything that you've learned, and now how do we apply it kind of strategically and tactically with how do you create opportunities for yourself through networking and building relationships? And we actually reframe that word of networking because there tends to be a stigma with that networking is kind of transactional and forced and slimy. So we talk about it in terms of networking, but we really get deep into all the nuances and all the different ways that you can build relationships with people and create opportunities for yourself, which speaks to the whole personal agency. Instead of, sometimes we all get frustrated. We're like, the world is not getting anything done for me, or no one's getting anything done for me. And we're trying to turn the tables and say, let's put you in charge in creating that great energy, those relationships. And then finally, once you're able to do that, let's say you're trying to get your first job or changing your career, whatever it is, then the last portion is, how can we help you break through in an interview? And it is one of the areas, just keeping it real, as you know, as a senior exec for 30 years in media, that young adults, fair or unfair, have this reputation of not being great interviewers. And now in this world where people aren't connecting as much anymore, that in-person interview, which we help you try and create those conditions, that in-person interview can really make the difference if you know how to prepare, how to build rapport, how to follow up. It can greatly increase your chances.
Absolutely. I'm not a young adult, but as we built this with you, got to experience these recordings and I got a lot out of them. I learned so much. And
Yeah.
I love that you have, so, if you're not a young adult, still check it out. Um, and you have this beautiful balance between hard and soft skills that you teach and kind of walk this group through, from things like interview skills, and also things like you have this beautiful process. I think you call it love and kindness, where it's like a space of forgiveness. Yeah, tell us about that balance between.
Oh my God, that's so serendipitous that you brought that up because just today, as you know, I'm sitting here I have my own business office here, but I am based at a charter school in Philadelphia. And fortunately, being a resourceful entrepreneur, I get this space for free. But part of that kind of relationship is I mentor a lot of young adults at this charter school. And the young adults from this charter school come from all over Philadelphia. So it's inner city kids from all over. And they're a little bit young. They're 16, 17, but it's really been super cool. And what do you know? What did we do today, Pua? We did love and kindness meditation. So how interesting that you didn't even know that and you brought that up. So today we actually covered, because we only have a few weeks left, we covered a lot. We covered emotional regulation and emotional intelligence, which obviously feeds into meditation. As you know, meditation can help you create that extra space. So love and kindness meditation is just a great way, kind of, she didn't invent it, but it was in the modern day. Sharon Salzberg is very famous for love and kindness meditation. And I was very lucky to study under her. And it's just this great way where you're sending out gratitude and gifts of love, first and foremost to yourself. Sorry to sound cliche, but it's the old put your oxygen mask on first. So you're first giving love and gratitude to yourself. So it's things like, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be at ease, and words like mantras like that. So you do that to yourself, then you do that to someone that you really care, or so they call it a benefactor. So it could be a parent, a partner, a really good friend, and you're giving out that love and kindness. And again, you can make up your own words, but and then what's really interesting is you do it for a neutral person. So let's say somebody that you don't really know, but serves you coffee every day at the local coffee shop. And then what's really interesting is you're also giving out this great energy to someone who's a difficult person in your life. And one of the things we say is it does not mean that you're condoning whatever their behavior is, whatever they've done or not done or whatever. It's just, it's kind of releasing maybe some very difficult energy in you, and it actually gives you power by letting it go. And then finally, you're giving out loving kindness to like everyone out there in the world. And for some people that are not into meditation that may be listening, I don't know if this sounds a little out there or woo woo. there's just amazing science behind when you do this on a regular basis. Not only does it help you, but let's say that difficult person, let's just say, for example, it's someone that you have to see and work with every day. What's really amazing is the research says, and of course, this would never be the case, but let's say you're that person, Pua. Let's say we're at odds at work. Whatever it is, we just are not on the same page. And I'm doing this loving kindness meditation. The next, over time, as you see me, you're not even going to know why, but all of a sudden, we're connecting a little bit better. For all the energy, spiritual, all these like little cues, physical cues, and there are subtle things that I'm doing to kind of be more relaxed. It really works. It really helps. So that's an example of like how far. So we're dealing with networking. We're dealing with, obviously things like routine things like resumes, like career direction. And then we're doing things like how can you better take care of yourself and hopefully create better relationships out there in the world, whether it's personally or professionally.
So good. One of the things I love most about my job is I get to learn from all of my clients. And what the day that you told me about that particular practice, I think I shared with you like a challenging relationship that I was having. And I was like, sorry, I'm a little distracted today. I'm dealing with this. And you shared that with me. And it's so practical. And I love that you have this beautiful balance between these sort of, I'm calling it a soft practice only because I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's fair.
but it's so applicable in day-to-day life, and all of this will stay with these young adults for the rest of their life. And the
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts of this program is the journal that you created that is a companion to the program, and I foresee people going to
Exhibit A,
the journal. Yes, it's a
this
physical.
beautiful design journal. Yes.
It's so, and I just envision people, 10, 20, 30 years after they complete the program, every so often opening it and saying like, "Oh my gosh, I actually did this," or, revisiting some of the practices. Could you share a little bit about what inspired you to create that and how it couples so well with the program?
Yes, I would love to do that. And at some point, I do want to share a story. As you said, you're learning from entrepreneurs. I want to share a story with you in a little bit that you're not aware of that I thought would be interesting. But let's stick to your question. So I think, as you know, you worked really hard with me on the electronic version of this. So the cool thing about Kindling that I think is super important with any online learning is I believe it can't just be watching beautiful videos. And I bias. I think our videos are beautiful and dynamic and there's great conversation and that's wonderful. If it just ends there, you still can learn a lot, but I think you're missing out on um, a call to action. And the great thing is we have a call to action for every single one of the 36 chapters of personal and professional development. And I just think that's one of the things that's missing in online learning for the most part. I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of online learning does not have a call to action, or if they do, it's kind of multiple choice. And I don't think that that develops critical thinking or really makes you be introspective. So what was really important to us was to create like every single person that signs up for the program gets this 160-page journal, personal journal that they get to keep. And here's like the whole program. But what's really powerful about this is I think journaling, there may be plenty of people listening, watching that journal, which is awesome. I think the majority of people do not, especially young adults, particularly young men. So this is such an incredible opportunity for young men to develop their voice, to pause and write down their thoughts, and young women. But based on all the years that I've been doing this, I would say probably more young women do this than men. So there's a lot of science, as you know, Pua, behind the intentionality of journaling, behind improved retention and learning through journaling. So we provide all of these action items, as you know, on the screen and both in fillable PDFs, but we feel it's so important that this is the one physical thing that we send people because it's such a personal thing and we want Kindling to be personal. This is not like a paint by the numbers. So everything that we talk about is timeless, and wisdom, and includes a lot of wisdom and insight, but it's very personalized to your life and what you're aspiring to do. So that's what we do. And the last thing I'll say about this is we put a lot of thought into this, and the Killing program is designed for every young adult to do on their own. I don't think adults give young adults enough credit. They're smart. There are things that they can do. Obviously, they may not have as much experience as you, but they can absolutely do this program on their own. We would love it if they did it from the beginning, in chronological order, because we build a story arc, but they absolutely do not have to do that. They get all the content all at once. We don't drip it, and then they can choose what they want. So they absolutely could do it on their own. But what we also did, in case, whether it's an HR director that wants to work with young executives that are just hired at a company, or whether it's a nonprofit or a college, whatever, we also created something. It's called the Killing Program Guide. And this is basically to train the trainer for somebody that's leading a cohort. Because let's just say, for example, Pua, you're a senior vice president of the company, and I'm like this rising star 27-year-old there, and you want to give me an opportunity for a leadership. So I'm like, hey, why don't you lead this group of young executives through this program for several weeks? So it's a great opportunity. So we don't want to assume that someone has done this before. So we give them this document that just helps them, like, hey, here's how to ask open-ended questions. Here's how to overcome objections. If you see people kind of getting distracted, here's how to pull them back in. We want to make it a great experience for somebody leading a cohort as well as the people doing it. So
You've thought of everything. You've
we
literally
tried to.
proof.
Can I share a story with you?
Please do.
I would love to share a story, and I definitely, because we know each other so well, and you know the business well, and I really appreciate your questions are like right on point. But I want to share something with you that you don't know. And I think you know certainly why this initiative matters to me. I know you know that. And you've met some of my kids who are involved, and my wife. But I wanted to share with you the origin, kind of like the OG story, the origin story of what really inspired me to do this type of work and start Kindling. So, you ready for this, Pua?
So ready.
So my grandfather was born in 1884 in Alcamo, Sicily. Can you believe that? How far back that is? So 1884, and when he was 14 years old, he had this ambitious and audacious goal, and that was to figure out a way on how he could come to the United States and build this new life for himself, and create a future family and build a career for himself. So he thought, and he asked around, and he said to himself, like, how can I do this? So he asked around. He found out that there was someone in town that could facilitate a sponsorship. And that's what you needed at the time. You needed a sponsor to get on the boat to go to the United States. And that sponsorship cost $300 in 1884. In case you're wondering, that's equivalent to about $12,000 today. So think of a 14-year-old coming up with, $12,000. So he gets a job at a barber doing odd jobs, and saves every penny and works every hour for 2 straight years to raise the $300 to begin to realize his dream. The day comes, he's sitting on the docks with his luggage, and he's crying his eyes out. And he's crying his eyes out because the person who was facilitating the sponsorship was a con man. And he stole not only the life savings of a 14-year-old, but he attempted to steal the hopes and dreams of a 14-year-old that wanted to make a better life for himself. So as he was crying on the docks, an American tourist came by, and his name is Mr. Ponte, as I was told, came over and said, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And my grandfather shared his story. And Mr. Ponte put his hand on his shoulder, and he said, "Hey, that sucks. And here's what I'm going to do to help. I'm going to sponsor you. I will sponsor you and bring you on this boat." They were both going to New York. He's like, "I'm going to introduce you to a few people, and the rest is up to you." So my grandfather goes to New York City, gets introduced, gets a job as a barber, and worked his way up. And many years later, he started a business with his business partner out in Long Island and created the first beauty parlor in Nassau County in Long Island, believe it or not. And he became very successful as he worked through this. It was during the Depression that things started to change. So it was a surprise to me how many women worked in professional jobs in New York City in the 20s. I just didn't know that. You would think back then they were all at home with their families, but they did. And they used to go to my grandfather's shop. But the Depression hit and they stopped coming. And my grandfather asked them why they stopped coming. They said they couldn't afford it, and they had lost their jobs. My grandfather said, "No, you need to keep coming. You need to take good care of yourself so you can get the next job. You don't have to pay me. You can start paying me when you get a job." On Thursday nights, he used to keep the business open really late, and his apartment was above his store. And my mother, who is now 94 years old, but my mother was, I guess, I'm trying to think, was a little girl back then, used to walk down the stairs from their apartment with pasta and meatballs, and he used to serve the customers free pasta and meatballs on Thursday night. And my mom's like, "Why are we giving away free food?" And he said, "Because nobody thinks of the mothers,
Mhm.
because the mothers are coming home, taking care of their families. They have full-time jobs, and it's about time somebody paid attention and took care of them." The last part I would say about this, and I want to talk to you about why this had such an impact on me. He, above the business, he had this big, big table. And he made known to the community if anybody needed a meal, they were always welcome to come to the table and have a meal at dinner time. And my mom told me there was, in particular, this Irish family who just were going through a really, really tough time, and they were regular people there. And he stayed in touch with Mr. Ponte, and Mr. Ponte was often a guest at that table. So why am I sharing this story with you? I'm sharing this story with you because it gave me such incredible perspective of the world. When you think about the fact that my grandfather could have walked away from those docks and ended up being an angry, bitter person for the rest of his life. And he chose not to do that. So after someone just wronged him, he still opened himself up and let somebody help him fulfill his dream and goal. And look what that incredible act of kindness did. Look how that rippled through for generations, right? And I think the real learning for me, Pua, too, is, we're all going to be faced with adversity. We're all going to face disappointment and adversity, hopefully not a lot, but for some of us, it can happen more than once. And I think we all have a choice how we respond to that adversity. And I think that was just a really incredible example of not only did he respond to it, and he allowed someone to help him. And I think that's part of the point is we all can't do it ourselves. And so I think to allow someone to help, but also what you do with that opportunity. So he got that second chance to come to the United States, and he didn't let that bad experience kind of taint him. And he built upon that, and then he rippled that through for generations. I That had an impact on me in terms of thinking like, who else out there has been wronged by, maybe, God forbid, maybe even a family member, or maybe their parents aren't as engaged, or maybe they don't have parents in their lives, or maybe their parents are too engaged. So how amazing would it be to have this program that you could personalize that helps you, make the most out of your life, to give you the tools and the resources. And I just think that that story speaks to kind of like the power of mentorship. So that's really my original story, along with my, knock on wood, amazing parents who have been incredible role models to me. I just don't think we can take for granted that everybody has that experience. So it's just a story that I'd never shared with you, Pua, that I just wanted to share. So
I'm so glad you shared it here today so that it's recorded and that we can put it out into the world. There's so much of your grandfather that's in you.
Oh, thank you very
I,
much.
I really, that story, listening to it, I feel like I understand you and your why you do what you do so much deeper now. And it's so interesting because there's a lot of kindness and a lot of, you know, just inspiration in that story. And you said something almost in passing, you that your grandfather allowed someone to help him. And
Yes.
especially in this time, it can be very difficult to allow people to help us or to ask for help or to say, "Oh my gosh, I can figure it out on my own. It's okay." And to know that this opportunity is here for people to seek the help that they desire or that they might just be curious about, and to know that you were the mind and the heart and the spirit behind this program, that's enough for me. I mean, it's
Oh, I
beautiful.
appreciate that. I really do. And I think what's cool about it too, Pua, is that look, we have to meet young adults where they are right now. And I do want to nudge, and we talk about it, as you know, in the program. I constantly talk to young about adults about putting yourself out there. And one of the things that we say is what makes us uniquely human makes us most valuable. So whether that's contacting on networking and helping somebody out, or an in-person interview or whatever it is, right? We are wired to belong. It's way back when we were in communities in the jungle. We are wired to belong and to connect. With that being said, not everyone is going to reach out personally and try and develop a relationship with a mentor. I hope they do, and we actually help young adults understand how to do that. I think what can be amazing with an online program, I think online learning can be amazing. I just think it's all about execution, right? But what can be amazing about it is, as you know, we've worked really hard to put together a super quality course. So what's really good about this is there's a consistency of the message. And I'm just being honest, for anybody out there that's a mentor, thank you, thank you, thank you. I do think that I've met people that have the best of intentions and want to be a mentor. And I think some people don't understand that it's an art and skill, and you have to put so much effort into it. I don't know if you've ever talked about this, but I may have. I really believe that there's a distinctive difference, although there's overlap, there's a distinctive difference between mentorship, teaching, and coaching.
Mm,
And all of them are amazing. And I've benefited by all three. I think mentorship is more like jazz and improv, where you're kind of flowing with the conversation. And I think something like teaching, and I am such a fan of teachers, and believe me, being at this charter school, I have even increased respect for teachers. Unfortunately, we live in a world where there are state requirements these days of a lot of standardized tests, which strip teachers a lot of their creative freedom. So they have to kind of teach to like state regulations, which is unfortunate that they can't use as much of their regulation. And then in college, we also live at a time, unfortunately, where professors are afraid to challenge the thinking of their college students for a host of different reasons that we don't have to get into, but I think that they feel somewhat limited. And then a coach, I'm making a broad generalization, but I think a lot of coaches, there are amazing coaches, and I've had a couple of unbelievable executive coaches. So big shout out to coaches. I do think many coaches have like a method, like a way, like this is their method that they're teaching. And I just believe that that doesn't necessarily work for every young adult. So what we try to do is teach timeless things that they need to know, and then they can kind of frame it and internalize it and kind of create their own reality for their own personal purposes. And I think that's where mentorship can be amazing. So I just, for anyone that is interested in mentorship, I just encourage you to really put the time in to learn kind of the connection and the language. It takes a lot of work, and I worked at it for a long time, and I've done it for many, many years. But I do think that's where an online program can be amazing, where if Pua, you reach out to me to be a mentor, it's kind of based on my schedule and my availability, right? So my availability may not jive with your availability, right? And also what could happen is we could have an amazing session, right? And there's all this stimulus, and the same goes for going to a retreat. And I've been to amazing retreats. I know you have. And there's all this stimulus. And then you leave that mentorship session or you leave that retreat. And the research has shown you're lucky if you retain 10 to 15% of it long term. The great thing with an online program, if it's done really well and it's timeless, you get to keep this and you get to review it over and over again. Your favorite chapters, or maybe, 2 years later, you're like, I'm just not feeling in a good place right now emotionally. You can go back to the emotional well-being section and kind of like refresh your understanding of that. And maybe your perspective 2 years later is different from when you first took it. And that's the great thing too. As you kind of get older, different chapters will mean different things.
Absolutely. I mean, I've watched and listened to the same content multiple times, and every time I listen to it, I hear something new. So that's the beauty of it as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, incredible. And I could literally talk to you about this for hours. I have so many questions. So I'm going to try to get in as many as I can.
Sure.
It's so
Sure.
fascinating. I am curious. You filmed this during COVID, and you did it in
Yes.
a beautiful space. And you had, as you said, you brought together 12 young adults. What was that experience like? How did you find the participants? Walk us through the actual filming process, because that's so interesting to me.
Yeah. So, first of all, I had worked years and years putting together this kind of curriculum. And it was a curriculum, not kind of a curriculum, for years and years, studying under all these people. And I had to take my own advice of not being a perfectionist. I felt such a sense of responsibility that we're talking about hearts and minds of young adults. And hopefully, hundreds of thousands of people long term will take this program and will take it for many years. But at a certain point, I was like, you're ready, Pete. Like, you have to do this. So, fortunately, through the help of our daughter Jasmine and Tiger, and my wife, and it also speaks to Pua, the power of networking and connections. I had built a relationship with a person named Christopher Plant, who was a great guy, who knew someone. I wanted to film this at a warehouse. I had done some beta content at a warehouse, and I felt a warehouse has such a history, right? And this warehouse has evolved over time. It was originally a yarn factory, and now it hosts like beautiful weddings and music videos and sets for film. But I also think a warehouse really resonates with young adults that live in both rural and urban settings. So we got this amazing warehouse. And because of COVID, fortunately, we got it for like 20 cents on the dollar because no one was doing filming back then. So we were very lucky. And fortunately, it worked for them because they got some revenue in. So we were able to rent this for 6 days. And if it was full price, I would not be able to afford it. Yeah. So we filmed in August 2020. Believe it or not, we're coming up on 5 years. It's incredible. The great thing is that the content's timeless, so it kind of doesn't matter. But we ended up doing a casting call. Now, some people, when I say casting calls, these are not actors. It's just we put out notices on LinkedIn, on Indeed, word of mouth. I mean, I talked to everyone, and we got about 150 video applications. Why video applications? Because I needed to make sure that people were comfortable in front of the camera. So we had 150. We narrowed them down to 30. Jasmine and Tiger, our kids, made the final decision on the 12 that we used. And we used 12 people because I think 12 is a really nice number because it's not too many people where there's, 50 or 100 people there that there's just too many people in the audience, but enough where we could be representative of lifestyle, culture, socioeconomic status, age, and interest. And it was also an even number so we could, if we're doing projects like kind of action items, we could break it up in a very even way. So we just hit the lottery with these 12 young adults. They were so amazing. As you know, Pua, they were so respectful to listening to each other, to building upon points, to being engaged with me, being engaged with each other. And they just made it amazing. I mean, they are the stars of, if there are stars, of the Kindling program because we're shining a light on them. Like Kindling is filmed from the perspective of young adults. That's what we're trying to do. This is not about Peter trying to play guru, wagging his finger and lecturing. Who wants to listen to that? Nobody wants to listen to that. So that's how we found them. And like I said, we're still in touch with them to this day. And we just got so lucky with the space. Even like, just to give you a quick snapshot, I think we worked like 18 to 20 hours those 6 days. Each day, we only had time for one take. So if like I could not afford to mess up any of these 36 chapters. Obviously, if I stumbled on a word, we would edit that out and I would say the word again. But we did not have the bandwidth to reshoot an episode. So number one, we had to get it right. But each night I sat down with our daughter Jasmine and my wife Kat, and we're like, okay, I think for tomorrow, I think we should kind of change this section and add this. We were like improvising at midnight, where we had to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning the next day. And we did it because we had so much adrenaline. We were able to pull it off. And I'm very lucky to be married to an amazingly talented creative force in my wife, Kat Ye, and our daughter, Jasmine. So each night we were kind of changing it up, but it also made it kind of unscripted for me too. I mean, obviously I was following somewhat of a plan, but it made it super exciting. And the changes that they made were so on point. So that's a little behind the scenes there. And by the way, you mentioned COVID. So the point I'm glad you brought that up. So the last thing I was going to do was spend all this of my own personal resources, time and effort and everything for hopefully where people are going to see this for many years with people with masks on, and you're not going to be able to see their expressions or anything else. So we had insane COVID procedures. Obviously, everybody had to have the vaccine. We tested everybody's temperature that morning. There were a litany of protocols that they had to go through, and fortunately, it all worked out. So, yeah, that was interesting to be doing that towards the tail end of the really scary period of COVID. But thankfully, nobody got sick because we had such great protocols in place.
Yeah. Talk about pushing forward in a time of adversity and just bringing your vision to life in any means possible safely. And you just, from beginning to end, you're so thoughtful about everything that you do. And you have this beautiful balance between preparation and just really refining things, and also flow and allowing things to happen as they do. And from the conversations that you've shared with me, with people from partners to young adults to small cohorts of students that you've supported, I just appreciate so much that your attention to detail and your ability to just allow things to flow and move through as they will.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And you've been a big part of helping us tell that story with designing the website and the learning platform. And we're super, super proud of collaborating with you and our editor, Iskra, and the film team and everybody that worked on the production. And fortunately, it's out there live and ready. And I think the biggest challenge, and I don't know if this was one of your questions, so sorry for me creating a question. But I think just our biggest challenge, and like, welcome to being an entrepreneur, there are all sorts of kind of chapters and phases of challenge, right? So the first several years, whether it was the right decision or not, and Pua, you and I have talked about this a million times, and we both have shared all these things that we've gone through as entrepreneurs. I think I just obsessed with product development, and I just felt that nothing matters until this thing is out there in the world where people can absorb this and hold on to this and help change people's lives. And we wanted to make it, accessible, affordable, credible, and relevant for young adults. And I wanted to do that at scale. So we're able to do that. It's available now. And I just encourage everyone just to check it out, whether you're interested for yourself or somebody that you care about, any way that, whether you want to mentor yourself, however you do it. But if you're curious about Kindling, check us out online. And we're in touch with a lot of different organizations. We're trying to make it super affordable. We're trying to get it in the hands of people who may want to, um, you know, buy it for somebody else down the street, or some corporation or organization. And, you and I have talked about this, whether it's like armed forces, people that are making big transitions in life, like armed forces, um, prison population, recovery community, foster care, in addition to people that are transitioning out of college, to people who are changing their careers. We really spent a long time, as you know, Pua, like trying to, it's really hard to be all things to all people, for sure. But what we really try to do is focus on what are the pain points of all 18 to 29-year-olds, regardless of where they're at in their lives, of any one of those areas that I just mentioned. I think there are such common threads, even though everybody's story is different and their circumstances are different. I think that there are certain common threads about all the things that I said about understanding yourself so you can more intentionally pick a direction, and how do you take care of yourself and improve your performance through, paying attention to your well-being, really refining skills, really respecting character development, understanding your choices. Again, networking, interviewing, like all that applies to everyone, no matter what you want to do in your life. So we're super excited about it. And the big challenge now, which I'm up for and we've talked about, is getting it in the hands of people so they can help improve their lives.
Fantastic. I cannot wait for the masses to go through this program. And so how can young adults, or from the actual participants who will individually experience the course, to people who perhaps want to have a cohort, or some kind of mentorship participation, how can they learn more? How can they get in touch with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, just check out our site. And we have a lot of video content on there, so you can get a real, hopefully I did a halfway decent job of creating the vibe of what Kindling is like. But these videos, as you well know, we're a visual company. Our website that you beautifully helped us design, Pua, is super visual, not only the colors, but a lot of video. So there's a lot to consume there. So we are gokindling.com. So that's GOKINDLING. So Kindling's like catalyst for change, catalyst for growth. So gokindling.com. Check out the FAQ section. We work very hard on trying to answer all those questions. If you have any questions of us, you can write us an email at info@gokindling.com. And what's cool about the site, in terms of if somebody wants to invest in it, somebody can invest themselves in it. And by the way, if you're 35 or 40 years old, I have absolutely people taking the program at 35, 40 years old. Can a 16-year-old take this course? Absolutely. I think it takes a really kind of, driven 16-year-old, and disciplined 16-year-old. So it's not a hard and fast 18 to 29-year-old. So you can purchase this for yourself. You could, maybe this is a gift, again, for son, daughter, niece, nephew, kid down the block. You could go to your employer. If this is something like, wow, I really want to take this program, but like, and we try to keep it super affordable, but like, I can't afford it. Go to your employer and say, do you, because a lot of companies these days, one of the good trends is companies will give employees, for example, like $1,000 credit to use for, a gym membership or online learning or something like that. So companies can help support this. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved, but I encourage people to go on there. Our social, which I have a lot of work to do, but I have two social handles. One is at Go Kindling, and the other one that I'm just starting is at Mentor Pete. So we're trying to develop that. So check us out there, and definitely connect with me, Peter Russell Kindling, on LinkedIn. That'd be great. You can always DM me there. And that's about it. So really excited. And Pooh, I just want to say again, the reason why I have been with you for all these years is that I really love what you do. I love how invested you are with initiatives that you care about. both in business, but also the things that you do on the side personally. So I really appreciate and I feel super grateful that you wanted to talk to me today.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to work with you and to finally have you on the podcast. I've just enjoyed every moment of this. Thank you for sharing your story. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it, Pooh. We'll talk soon.
absolutely.